If you want to get a preview of how a president plans to lead, just look at who their donors are.
Today's guest is American political commentator Ana Kasparian. She's the producer and host of a hugely successful show on YouTube called The Young Turks.
I grew up in the 90s. We weren't as obsessed with dividing ourselves into these little groups based on our skin color or our gender.
I have found her to be a sane voice out of all of the crazy madness going on right now.
If the Republicans declare one thing, well, Democrats, by definition, must declare the opposite. I don't think that's the right way to look at any issue.
And it is my goal on the show to always elevate different perspectives.
They've been neglected, they've been ignored. And so they see Trump come in as like a wrecking ball to the political elite.
Ana and I are gonna dig in on everything right, left, and in between.
Some of these nonprofits literally going to Skid Row and handing out crack pipes.
Right.
And that's their idea of helping the homeless.
Here we go.
Keeping It Real with Jillian Michaels.
I watched your conversation with Matt Walsh today. I thought it was a good conversation. I haven't seen that film at all, but I mean, he touches on something that's very real.
I watched your conversations with Ben Shapiro.
Mm-hmm.
And you inspired me to have that conversation with Matt Walsh.
Yeah, because I'm sure you have disagreements with him. And
many.
Yeah. And so it's interesting to find like the areas of common ground, which I think people have been dissuaded from doing for a long time now.
Yes.
And it helps to like, it basically feeds into like this dehumanizing of the other side, right? So I'm glad you're having these conversations.
Well, part of the reason I'm having them is because I've been inspired by people like yourself and people like Bill Maher. It's felt like a very bad divorce for the past 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, I would say the last decade's been pretty bad in terms of like tribal politics and I fed into a lot of it, so we'll talk about all that, and then realized that I was making a big mistake.
Interestingly, you are, and again, I'm ashamed to admit this, you're one of the only voices on the left I can listen to anymore. And I have found that moving center, which I'm holding on to as fast and furiously as possible, reminds me of coming out of the closet. It was that hard for me when you're like, no, I'm not gay, I'm bisexual.
Yeah.
No. And it's like, I'm liberal, I'm center, and I'm center right, but Anna, I haven't changed.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot going on with political identities, and in a lot of ways, the two parties have also realigned on certain issues. The things that I used to not like about the Republican Party have kind of been adopted by the Democratic Party.
Yes.
And then you have like factions within the party. Some are more extreme than others, but lately it feels as though the extreme factions of each party has kind of taken over the entire party. And that happens because people who are more, I wouldn't say centrist, but like more moderate in their views or a little more understanding and sympathetic to the other side, they just feel out of place. They feel like they're committing some sort of crime, right? That they're not being loyal enough to their tribe. And so I can totally understand feeling like as you become more and more open and honest about what you're feeling, I can see the similarity of like coming out and how scary that is. Like it's super scary. And I know from firsthand experience how scary it is.
I've watched videos of you a year ago and you essentially talk about feeling politically orphaned.
Homeless. Yeah.
But you identify still on the left. Talk to me about where you're at.
I'm at a point where I actually do not want to be pigeonholed in any political tribe or identity because everything has become very dogmatic. And if you don't buy into the entirety of the dogma, you open yourself up to backlash and being, kicked out of the tribe. And it's like, it's not a fun experience. But I think when you come at every issue from a place of, all right, well, I want to get to the bottom of this story. I want to know what the truth is. What's the reality? that, first of all, allows for more exploring and understanding. And I can't emphasize enough how much happier you become once you have a better understanding of the world around you and those you disagree with politically. Because right now, there's, in my opinion, this effort to like really demonize and even dehumanize the other side. And there's a lot of fear mongering going on. And if you have bought into that narrative, then you're going to walk through life thinking that half the country is full of like neo-Nazis and, they're going to want to harm you. They're going to want to, destroy the country. And I just don't think that's a healthy way of looking at the other side. I think that there are gradations. I think there are, of course, extremes, but I don't think the extremes should be used to paint a picture of the entirety of the Republican voting base or vice versa.
It's either libtards and commies or Nazis.
That binary way of thinking is just not rooted in reality at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And that's why when I've watched you debate with Ben Shapiro, and even the preamble you guys have had for 10 minutes about, I really enjoyed the relationship that we have. I really enjoyed that we can have this civil discourse. I really like you as a person. And then it's like, and you still like each other.
Yeah.
It's so comforting. I can't even tell you.
Well, I think that's how political discussions used to happen in the country. I mean, I don't know when it changed to the point where if you disagree with someone politically, well, that means that you can no longer be friendly to each other. You can't be friends. I mean, during the Trump era, so many families were torn apart over political disagreements. And by the way, I'm speaking all high and mighty. I just want to take a moment to take ownership of the fact that I fully bought into that mind frame. Like I totally bought into that. And there's a video floating out there somewhere of me basically saying, no, you can't be friends with someone who supports Trump or has these views because it's giving you a sense of who they really are as a person and they're a bad person.
Right.
Right?
That deplorables.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when Hillary Clinton made the deplorable statement.
I worked for the Clintons. I loved the Clintons.
And then she apologized for it because she was getting backlash. And I remember at that time being upset with her for apologizing because I had fully bought into, no, these people are deplorable. These people are terrible. And it took a lot of growing to realize that there are a lot of Republican voters who actually do not like some of the things that Donald Trump says because he does say divisive things. He does say hateful things.
I hate that too.
But there are certain issues that he speaks to, right? Certain either economic issues, anything that might have to do with the deindustrialization of like the Rust Belt. Those are issues that really resonate with them because no other politician has sincerely addressed those issues. They've been neglected. They've been ignored. And they've been ignored by what they view as the political elites. And so they see Trump come in, and yeah, he's a little unhinged in some of the things he says, but they see him as like a wrecking ball to the political elite or the establishment, exactly. And once I was able to really fully grasp that and understand that, and by the way, once I started to understand the flaws in my own party, it helped me kind of begin this journey of rejecting political tribalism and not wanting to be pigeonholed into any political group. I want to feel free to think for myself and to explore ideas without feeling guilty about it. You know?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think for me, as a devout liberal who always thought I was the better person, I thought we were the good guys. I really did. I was brought up that way. And I thought, if you're a Republican, you want war. If you're a Republican, you don't care. I have changed my mind on a lot of this stuff, but you're ridiculous with your gun laws. If you're a Republican, you hate gays. If you're a Republican, you're a racist. I really honestly took the bait. And then Trump was so belligerent when he first began running and they're all rapists and racists coming over the border or whatever, criminals. And that was really abrasive. And I live in a border state. We live in a border state, my whole life up until recently. And it felt like an assault on all of these wonderful people I saw who were economic migrants wanting a better life.
Right.
And, then it was the woman's right to choose, and we're taking that away, and gay marriage, that's going. And I was appalled. Then I met my wife, and oh my God, I can't believe we're married because she was a Republican. And I was like, what is wrong with you? How could you possibly? And I'll never forget, she's like, you think you're such a good person. You think you're so liberal and so understanding. You guys are the least understanding, the least accepting, and the least tolerant of anybody who doesn't agree with you. Cut to, I started hearing everywhere, or at least focusing on it. Oh, well, they voted for Trump, so I had to cut them out. Oh, I haven't spoken to my mother. She's a Trump supporter. I remember seeing a post on social, and I've talked about it a lot. It was on this blog called Scary Mommy. That was supposed to be funny. We're supposed to make fun of what shitty moms we were. It's supposed to be funny.
Right.
Which became political. And it was like, if you pray to Allah, I'll sit next to you on the bus. If you, are gay married, like, I'll hold your hand. All these things about you're allowed to be on the fringe and I will accept you. In the comments, what if I'm wearing a MAGA hat? And the answer was, well, if you're not a racist or a bigot or a this or a that, sure.
Yeah.
And I saw it. I saw it so clearly. And then another person who's friends with my wife was like, don't you understand? These people that your party is demonizing, they work 2 jobs to make ends meet. Like, they go to church.
Exactly.
They try to be a better person. Like, they're just trying to get by, and you're calling them ignorant for being religious, like racist, bigoted. So they feel completely abandoned, disenfranchised, and demonized, and Trump is speaking to them.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, since I kind of started speaking out against some of the behaviors of the left or on the left, of course, that led to a lot of backlash from the left because you're only supposed to call out the other side. You should never, hold your own side accountable when they're engaging in intolerant behavior. But once I finally felt comfortable enough to raise concerns about how the left talks about crime, for instance, and things like that, they couldn't wait to purge me. Like, I really did notice that there was this effort to just do away with me. I'm not pure enough. I'm not good enough. Like, you're not one of us. And I had already gotten to a point in my life where I was willing to accept that treatment as long as I was able to speak my mind. And it took me at least a year, if not more, to finally feel comfortable to come out and say, no, the way that we're handling homelessness is not the right way to handle it. No, it turns out that crime is real, and there are some people in society who are a danger and a threat to the public, and they should be in prison. And, I was saying this stuff in the left-wing era of abolish the police or abolish the prison, the prisons. And as they were trying to purge me, you have the right wing asking you to come join with open arms, right? And it's just so interesting to me. Look, I'm not a Republican, and I'm a little more socially conservative than I was when I was younger, but not on issues like gay marriage or whatever. It's more on, actually police are important and we need to reform policing, yes, but the idea that we need to, shut down prisons, which we have in California. We've shut down 4 of them. Now there's no room for inmates, and they're just releasing people as early as possible with this BS, like good behavior credits when they're behind bars. No transparency on that. We don't know what they did to deserve to get 20 years shaved off their sentence. But okay. So this stuff is all going on. And I have a few views that have changed and evolved, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm in line with the Republican Party.
Right.
But they don't care. They don't care that I have some differences with them. What they care about is, honestly, on one hand, if I'm being cynical, power. They understand that in order to be a powerful party, you need to be more welcoming and you need to have broader coalitions of people. I think there's a side of the Republican Party that understands that. But there's also this faction in the Republican voting base that consists of disaffected Democrats. And I don't know if they've fully bought into what Republicans are selling, but they don't feel welcome on the left. So they've been absorbed onto the right.
Yes.
And I'm seeing the right wing change.
Yes.
They went from the neocon pro-war party to now all of a sudden, what are we doing in like the Middle East right now? What are we doing in Ukraine? Like, why are we doing this? We have our problems here. Can we please handle our problems here? And I now see that Dick Cheney is endorsing Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is going around town talking about how honored she is. And I'm like, you're honored to be endorsed by a war criminal? I mean, if I were in her shoes, I would like pull Dick Cheney aside and be like, listen, thank you for your support, but can we just keep this on the DL?
Totally.
You know? But she's like
Yes.
proud of it. She's flaunting it. And that's not the party that represents me or represents my best interests.
And they've spun the narrative, though. They're
Mhm.
like, look, even people are so worried about Trump that people like Dick Cheney have joined our side.
Yes,
And I'm like,
yes.
no. That implies that you will do his bidding. And it's playing out in real time. We're in numerous wars. I
Yes.
don't understand anything about geopolitics, but all I know is it's gotten way worse.
It has, definitely.
Like, I'm watching people die all over the world, and everyone tells me Trump is Hitler, and I'm like, well, we didn't really, it didn't sound like it got worse over there, and now we're in a war in the Middle East, where these proxy wars,
We're in
forgive my
proxy
ignorance,
wars.
like,
No,
I
no,
don't
you're
fully
right.
understand it.
They are essentially proxy wars. Yeah, and I mean, the whole reason, I don't think the US government really gives a damn about Ukraine. I think the US government gives a damn about weakening Russia's military capabilities.
Right, okay.
But the way the Biden administration has handled this war in Ukraine, by essentially discouraging them to engage in a peace negotiation, that was early on in the war. Now I think it's too late.
That was
Remember-
2022, right?
Yes,
Kennedy talks about that.
because early on in the war, I mean, Putin was deluded enough to think that it was going to be easy, but it wasn't easy. And so when he goes in and it's a challenge and some of their soldiers are dying and they're having difficulty, taking territory, there was a moment where the two sides could sit down and actually engage in a peace negotiation that Putin was willing to engage in.
Right.
Now, he's not willing to engage in a peace negotiation because he's winning. He's winning that war.
Right.
And we keep giving Ukraine more and more weapons. They're now doing, airstrikes and bombings in Russia, which I don't think is going to make the situation any better. And Russia has gotten closer with some of our other adversaries, including China, including Iran. So
North Korea.
yeah, exactly. I mean, this was, in my view, this was all predictable. But the whole idea was we need to weaken Russia's military capability while simultaneously continuing to make our own weapons manufacturers and defense contractors real rich.
Got it.
So it's a form of redistribution of wealth from ordinary, hardworking Americans to a small group of executives behind these defense contractors. And so I have a huge problem with that. My views on that never changed.
Me either.
So it's weird to have the Democratic Party perpetuate what's happening, around the world with these wars. And the Republican Party, on the other hand, at least the voters, I want to be clear, the voters are saying, no, we're not okay with this. Okay. We don't want this. We want to get out of these wars. We want to take care of our own. And that's what I want. I want to take care of our own. So there are areas where I definitely agree with Republican voters more than Democratic voters. And that's the thing that's really throwing me for a loop because these are the views that I've always had.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh my God. See, this is why when you talk, I feel like I can breathe. There's a few people out there that, Bill always says like sanity needs a safe space.
Yep.
And those voices rise to the top because I think the majority of us that are in the middle who feel orphaned are finding sanity in the things that you're saying. And when I try to have this conversation with the people on the left, and I'm trying not to shut anybody on the left out, right? But they are the least tolerant and they eat their own.
They do. That's a huge problem on the left.
They eat their own. Oh, not left enough. You're gone. Oh, really? You don't think you can be healthy at any size? Fat shamer, you're out of here. Not left enough.
Right.
Oh, you're not down with the medicalization of 6-year-olds who want to be a tomboy? Transphobe.
Right. Yep. It's so true.
What is that? It's so myopic. You are forcing people to defect.
I want to be the kind of person who empowers people, inspires people, and avoids enabling self-pity in people. And I think that the other issue that I'm seeing, and again, we're making obviously blanket statements because there are gradations on the left and the right? So there are plenty of Democratic voters that are just like us. I think a lot of them are terrified to speak out. And I'm hoping that by speaking out myself, it'll empower them to say what they really think and voice what their genuine concerns are. But at some point last year, the other thing that really hit me was the difference between my upbringing and what the Democratic Party espouses. I was raised by very tough parents. And I would say, like, even though I'm a millennial, an older millennial, I would say my upbringing is more similar to how Gen X was raised, right? Like,
Welcome.
But I think that was the right way because it teaches you to be self-sufficient and honestly empowered, right? Like I always felt empowered to choose my destiny. To, like, if I work hard, and I get it, there are issues in our government, in our system. There are things that, you know, have served as obstacles for younger generations that didn't necessarily exist for older generations. I get all of that. However, we all get to wake up in the morning and make choices for ourselves. And when I hear the Democratic Party constantly disempower people of color, because that's what they're doing. I mean, really think about it. Like, they keep using this messaging that infantilizes them and makes them seem as though, you know, if it weren't for us white saviors, you know, messing around with these laws and policies, they would never be able to survive. And I find that so gross. I'll give you a specific example. This drove me crazy. Culver City schools. They took a look at their honors program and they realized that there was a real disparity between the white students and the Latino students. Very few Latino students had enrolled in the honors program. So they decided the right thing to do would be to just scrap the honors program altogether. And that pissed me off. And it pissed me off because, first of all, you're not actually addressing the issue here. I think those Hispanic students are capable of greatness.
Right.
You just have to do the work to get them there, you know? And when you scrap the program, you're essentially communicating to all the students, no, we're gonna get rid of this opportunity because we don't believe in you guys. It's just, it's doing away with an opportunity rather than seeing what the flaws are in our education system and then rising to the occasion to help these students, you know, where we do see the disparity, you know, get to where we want them to be. That's the right way to approach it. But there's just this weird, like, defeatist mentality. And I'm honestly also very sick of, like, white people going around being offended on behalf of marginalized people.
Oh my God, they're just virtue signaling. It's disgusting.
It
It's
is.
like,
It is.
I'm the good guy.
Yep.
I will. Do you remember this? Oh
I will
my
save
God.
you. Right?
There was an ad that went around, forgive me, and it had like actors that I had loved. One that I trained back in the day when I was like 27. And it was like, I can't recall exactly, but it was like, I'm responsible. Or I'm sorry that I didn't, and like, you know, who knows what, basically taking on the history of racism. And I thought, this is so cringy and awful.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility for every unchecked moment.
For every time it was easier to ignore than to call it out for what it was.
Every not so funny joke. Every unfair stereotype.
Every blatant injustice, no matter how big or small.
Every time I remained silent.
Every time I explained away police brutality. Or turned a blind eye.
I take responsibility. Black people are being slaughtered in the streets, killed in their own homes. These are our brothers and sisters.
Our friends. Our family. We are done watching them die.
The Black community vomited it back
and
up.
as they
saw
should.
right through it.
As they should. I would too.
You know, and being the mom of a Black child, the reason I really don't like it is because if you tell my daughter the world's systemically against her, then if she ever falls down, there's no agency to say, like, why did I fall down? Let me pick myself back up. Let me reapproach. It's, I'm a victim. And as a victim, you're fundamentally disempowered to change anything.
Right.
So part of me wonders if this isn't some sort of conspiracy theory narrative of racism to keep people of color down by telling them they've got no hope. I've often wondered that. By making them angry, which then alienates those of us who, where there is injustice, would have previously got involved, and now we're kind of like, I'll just stand here because I'm paralyzed to know what to do. Like,
right.
I don't want to be a savior, but I don't want to get involved. Like, I don't know. Where there are real moments that, like this that you're talking about, right? Like doing the work for the Hispanic kids to make sure they have the resources they need.
Right.
It's like it gets taken away, so their opportunities get taken away.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, when I started kindergarten, I didn't speak a single word of English. I'm the child of Armenian immigrants. Yeah, so I grew up, you know, with my parents speaking Armenian. That was the first language I learned. Now I need help with Armenian because my English is way better. But what they did in the elementary school I went to is before any of the classes started, they had me do this test to see where I was with like my English skills. They realized I need English as a second language, like an extra curriculum tacked onto what all the other students were doing. So what the school did was realize, okay, she's having trouble with English. We need to get her caught up. So there's going to be an extra program that we're offering to her to get her up to speed. And that helped me tremendously, along with watching Sesame Street and learning English that way as well. But the school didn't just give up on me and say, she doesn't know how to speak English. We don't know what, maybe we just don't grade her as harshly.
Right.
Right? So just let her flail, but give her the grade so she can pass. And that's not helping, you know?
I remember watching you on Patrick Bet David. I didn't even watch Patrick Bet David. He was so far right, but somehow the friggin' YouTube algorithm flicked it up in my feed, maybe because I had been vocal at the time about leaving California. And you articulated everything wrong with California, and that was the moment I discovered you. And I found you online and have been, you know, devouring your content since then. But nobody can express this, not Elon Musk. Nobody expresses what's wrong here from a governing perspective like you do. So I'm just going to say I grew up here.
Me too.
Okay. Nothing was crazy like this.
Right.
The homelessness, crime, the advocating for the medicalization of children, like advocating for late-term abort, like I'm never gonna put a limit on, like what about 8 months? No, still no. Like what do you mean still no? Like what having a legal safe rare? Come on. Like there's a limit, come on. Like this madness. And I personally feel that I have lived through it, and Gavin Newsom is the tip of that spear.
Yeah, for sure.
Go. Take me from the top to the bottom. No one does it like you do. And the concern is that it goes from California to a federal problem.
Yeah, that should be a concern. And in fact, some of the failed policies that we've implemented here, unfortunately, have been exported to other states.
Right.
And I'll give you a quick example, because we have literally squandered $25 billion on the homeless issue over the last 5 years. And I say squandered because there was recently an audit that wanted to see, like, okay, where did the money go? Because over the last 5 years, we've spent all this money, but homelessness has exploded. Homelessness has increased by 58% since 2013. Okay, so obviously this money isn't going where it was supposed to go.
Right.
And so it turns out that the state government started giving out these grants but after 2020. Okay. And the grants that they would give out to were these nonprofits, newly formed nonprofits in many cases, that were tasked with helping the homeless. Except some investigations found they weren't actually helping the homeless. They were giving their executives some massive raises, lots of gifts to the staff. You know, there are videos of some of these nonprofits literally going to Skid Row and handing out crack pipes.
Right.
And that's their idea of helping the homeless. So the Project Room Key expansion happened. And some of these nonprofits that were tasked with converting old hotels and motels into apartment buildings for the homeless didn't finish their projects, abandoned their projects after getting tens of millions of dollars in these state government grants. And I'm furious about this. They stole from us. And so when you have that experience here, right, in California, and you see how all of these politicians who have all of these friends, who run all of these nonprofits, who stole our money, when you see that, it's really hard to have these conversations about how we need to increase taxes on anyone, you know, increase taxes on the rich, increase taxes on corporations. Generally speaking, I'm in favor of everyone paying their fair share.
Right. Me too.
But I'm less interested in having a conversation about taxing people more when I've seen what is done with our money. On a federal level, a lot of it goes to the military, right? Not even the military, not to the men and women who risk their lives for this country. It goes to weapons manufacturers, defense contractors, Boeing, Raytheon, you get the point. You look at the starting salary of a soldier in our military, and it's like $20-something thousand, considering we're spending close to $1 trillion a year on our Defense Department. It's insane, right?
Cops don't make much either, Sim.
They don't, right? And if you want quality cops,
Pay them.
you need to pay
Train 'em.
them, exactly. But also, defunding the police makes no sense when you need better training. Better training costs money.
Right.
So all of these things, all of these ideas that I used to subscribe to on the left have been implemented and they have failed. And I'm not interested in having a conversation about keeping this gravy train for a select few going because it's the, in their view, moral thing to do. Like, no, this is not moral. All of the problems that you guys said you were going to fix, you have made worse. They refuse to recalibrate, and it's infuriating.
Why? Okay. Why?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not done with California, but you said refuse to recalibrate. For the life of me, I remember Michelle Obama, let's move.
Mm-hmm.
Health is an alt-right issue now, which I want to get to a bit later on, but I remember the Obamas were anti-gay marriage. Then we got them to, okay, gay marriage.
Right.
And now it's, let's medicalize children and put them on off-label cancer drugs and chop off their boobs. And the Obama administration is trying to lift any age restriction on it. They tried to pass that through.
Did they really?
Yes, Google it. Obama,
I did not know
Biden,
that.
Biden, the Biden
Oh,
administration.
Biden, okay.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
The Biden administration has moved to remove any age limitation on the medicalization of gender dysphoria. I have no problem with you changing all that stuff. I just want your brain to be developed. And it is irrefutable that cancer drugs and puberty blockers will greatly impair a developing human body, in particular, not just your bones, your brain. Your brain. It says on the box of Lupron, brain swelling. Like, are we insane? And I'm watching Michelle Obama at the DNC, who I loved. Not gonna lie to you, I loved her. And she's advocating for that. And I'm thinking, how did you get from anti-gay to here? There's no way you've made that quantum leap in your ideology, is there?
Well, I think what happens is...
What is happening?
Every action by one side leads to an equal or even more extreme reaction. And so I think what has happened... Look, I'm not necessarily on board with completely banning all of those treatments. Like, there are cases where someone who is a minor is suffering from gender dysphoria that's so extreme, and they might be suicidal as a result of that, right? I think those cases are actually very rare, much rarer than the left is willing to admit.
That's what the data shows in the Cass report.
And so in that case, I love that you brought up the Cass report. They would reject the Cass report altogether.
They do.
Yeah,
and they
do.
cite the
Yeah.
WPATH files.
I know.
Which Michael Schellenberger just dumped all of that data out there,
Yeah.
which is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I feel like the US is kind of behind when you look at European countries and, you know, what happened with Tavistock in the UK, for instance. There are areas where irresponsible treatments can be doled out to kids who might not actually be suffering from gender dysphoria at all. So there's concern about that.
Would you medicalize them?
I
That's the question. It's not wear a dress and call me Penelope.
Right.
It's blocking their body while it's developing. It's taking off parts of their body.
Right.
That they may grow up and be like, actually, I want my boobs back, or I want my penis back, or 18, older.
Yeah.
That's my issue with it, not transgenderism.
What I think is actually the most toxic part about all of this is how this area of medicine has been so politicized.
Yes.
And so doctors who want to be more cautious are, you know, pretty viciously harassed as like, oh, they're gatekeepers. But like, no, they're the medical professionals. And they're trying to make the best possible decision on behalf of their patient. They're not just trying to be gatekeepers. They're trying to provide the best possible treatment for someone who may or may not suffer from gender dysphoria. My problem is once you politicize this area of medicine, then pressure plays a role, right? Pressure on the doctors, pressure on the individuals carrying out some of the studies. There's actually a lack of research. I know people want to pretend like there's a ton of research behind gender-affirming care for minors. There isn't.
It's limited, and the length
limited.
of it is limited, which is what Hillary Cass addresses.
Exactly. And so, look, I have no ill will at all in my heart for transgender people. In fact, I have a lengthy career of defending them from being discriminated against, and I will continue to do that.
Same.
But I do think that there's this issue of, you know, I think it really does go back to nonprofits again. I know that sounds crazy and conspiratorial, but it does.
It's not though. That you're absolutely right. First of all, let's not negate that it has a compound annual growth rate as an industry of 10%. It's the drugs are making billions of dollars across the board. These children have to be on this medication the rest of their lives. So it's extraordinarily profitable over the long term. Then people say, well, how much is it really happening? And I heard Abigail Schreier tell Bill on Real Time, she's like, since I've written this book, Irreversible Damage, tens of thousands of children have been transitioned. I was like, that's absurd. That's not real. It's true. It's true.
Through medication.
Medication. It's the medicalization piece by all means. And these children and people who have advocated for it, like Dr. Drew was on, he's like, well, for some people, it can be life-changing. I said, but did they medicalize those people you know? I don't think so. I'm like, put on a dress and I will call you whatever you want. Cut your hair, wear makeup. And I get that that's controversial. Everyone's like, reject that. I'm doing it. If my kid wants me either, you want to explore it, explore it. Run through whatever you need to run through. And if it nets out here at 18 or 21 or 25, and then you want to change your body when your brain is developed and your bones are developed, by all means.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that now you've got the Cass review and all of these different countries in Europe pull back and the US doesn't recalibrate. To tie it back to your message of crime is up, homelessness is up. All these other countries are looking at the data and saying, well, hold on, let's put the pause on this. Let's explore this more, research more. We go deeper to remove any age limitation. Why are we incapable of recalibrating?
Certain issues become woven into the fabric of a political party. And I think in the view of a lot of well-meaning people, they feel they're doing the right thing. They feel that they are being more accepting of a group of people who have suffered a lot in this country, right? Have been brutalized in the shadows in this country. So I think it's important to remember that it does actually come from a good place. But just because it's coming from a good place doesn't necessarily mean it's the right option or the right way to move forward. And so, like, I think it's important to have laws protecting transgender people from discrimination in housing, in the workplace, and all of that.
Agree with you.
But I also think that the transgender community is not the same as the gay community, or passing something to codify and protect gay marriage. That's very different from some of the more complicated, nuanced issues that arise when it comes to gender, right? So I really think that women have been totally erased from this conversation. And if anyone raises their hand and says, like, actually, I'd like to be part of this conversation because this does impact me, oh, I mean, they're harassed pretty viciously. So much so that they might start off as liberal and all of a sudden find themselves, you know, rubbing shoulders with the extreme right. Because the right's going to open their arms and say, come to us. We welcome you.
That is exactly what's happening.
Yep.
And when you feel like you've been attacked by your people.
Right.
And now you're standing out there in the cold wondering what happened. And then the right opens the door. And I fight very hard within myself to stay in the center because I see the problems on the right. I have my whole life. I don't judge anyone for their opinions. I don't demonize anybody for those opinions. And I've grown out of it like you did. I thought I was the better person. I've learned my lesson. I will mea culpa it. But when Sean Hannity and Jesse Waters are willing to have a conversation about a hearing on health at the Capitol, and CNN tells me I'm anti-science, I mean, my God, where do you think I'm going to lean? What do you think you're doing?
I think a lot of people find themselves in that position, and it's uncomfortable, right? Because if you are proceeding through life with an understanding of what your morals, your principles, and values are, then you won't really get sucked into a party you don't belong in. The first time I was pretty viciously demonized by my own side was when I opened up about, you know, I've talked about this so many times, I feel bad repeating it, but it was really that big moment for me, right?
Yeah, mine was the you're a fat shamer because I said I didn't want Lizzo to die of diabetes. I was like, wait, when did we start celebrating?
And now she's getting healthy. Like, now she's working out.
I watched them attack her, by the way. I'm just waiting for it to start. But, or say she's on Ozempic. I saw that happen.
Oh,
she's
I
like,
saw
I'm
that
not
too.
on Ozempic. I was like, can we just...
No, I'm proud of her. She wants...
Same.
We should celebrate people wanting to better themselves and better their lives. Instead, there's like this effort to like basically tell people you're fine the way you are. You don't need to change a thing, even if that thing is like slowly killing you. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
It's the empathy you talked about.
Yeah.
And Gad Saad, did you ever read The Parasitic Mind? Oh my God, Anna, you must read it. Gad Saad calls it suicidal empathy. And it's dysregulated empathy. But I interrupted you. Tell me about your moment of when they went after you the first time.
Yeah, so it was so weird because it was unexpected, like super unexpected. In 2022, it was around March, I was walking my dog. It was not quite dark yet, but the sun was setting. As I'm walking my dog, I see these two guys that they were just kind of like moving around weirdly, you know, they seemed kind of manic and their clothes were tattered. So I knew that they were probably homeless. And I also knew that they're probably on something just based on like the twitchy way they were acting. But living in LA, I mean, there's homeless people everywhere, right? So I've never had problems. I didn't think anything of it. But as I was bending down to pick up my dog's mess, one of the guys like grabs me by my hips and he had an erection.
Oh God.
And just starts like humping me. And I didn't know what to do. Like, I was terrified. I didn't have a weapon on me. Like, I had no way of defending myself. I didn't know how far it was gonna go because it's two guys. I'm by myself with my little dog. It was one of the most terrifying things ever because I'm pretty good at defending myself. In that moment, I just knew there was no option.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And luckily, he stopped and they just laughed at me and walked away as they were laughing at me. And so there was the fear and then the humiliation and weirdly shame. Like, I felt ashamed for some reason. And it was awful. And it was really taking a toll on my mental health because I have to walk my dog, right? So at least 2 or 3 times a day, I'm going outside kind of scared. And so I opened up about this on the show, not really thinking much of it. And before I know it, I'm starting to get these messages, and it's like really, really harsh stuff. And it's about how you are painting a picture of the homeless community. You know, how could you be like this? You know, these are your unhoused neighbors and they need help. A few people accused me of being racist when I had never disclosed the race of the individuals who did this to me. And in fact, they were white. And so like when they started accusing me of being racist, I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you assuming that the people who did this?
Of course.
Yeah, like, I think you might have a problem here.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that woke me up. That woke me up because I'm like, oh my God.
They eat their own, mama.
Some of the people.
They eat their own on the extreme left.
And some of the people that I've associated myself because I thought these are the good people.
Yep.
These are the ones who don't treat others differently based on their skin colors. No, they definitely have stereotypes in their head and are totally blind to the fact that they have those stereotypes and in fact go around accusing others of being bad actors when they themselves need to do the work. You know, this phrase they like to say a lot, do the work. Do the work and ask yourself, why did you have that stereotype in your head?
Oh my gosh, did you see, you said you watched a little bit of the interview I did with Matt. Did you see the video where the guy's going around saying our voter ID laws racist? And all the white people say, yes, they are. And when they're asked why, they're like, well, you know, they'd have to know how to use a computer. Well, they'd have to have data plan. Well, you know, they don't have anywhere to go with this ID. And I thought, like, it doesn't get more.
They don't see it.
It does not get more racist than you thinking a person of color has nowhere to go with their ID, doesn't have the money for a data plan, can't figure out how to find the DMV on the web.
And that they're incapable.
Yes.
They're incapable of doing basic things.
I mean, talk about racist.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And so like I see this now for what it is. And while these very big issues and flaws exist, we're having conversations about like microaggressions. And I'm like, no, what about aggressions? Like, what about the kinds of things that you are saying that disempower people? Like if you're a elementary school Black student and you're hearing incessantly from your teachers, from politicians that the system is against you, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
100%.
Right? And I don't want to message that to kids, and I don't want to message that to any community that's been historically marginalized. I think everyone is capable of greatness. And so I want to get back to a party that actually wanted to lift people up rather than tell people you're failing and you will continue to fail because that's just how the system is.
I also think that is a trick. And I'm not sure who's playing it, but here's why. Because I've watched more athletes and more musicians, people who sell tickets and t-shirts, alienate audiences that aren't of color. And I told my daughter, I'm like, who's Black, this is not my son, but my daughter. I was like, do not play this game. You are the people's champion if you get into a position where you are a champion. You make music for everybody and anybody who will listen. Invite everybody into your world. I'm sorry, but Black America is 13% of the population. What about the other 87% of the money? Just the success piece that you're leaving on the table. Like, we worship Serena Williams in our house. She's not a Black kid's champion. She's our champion.
Yeah, 100%.
She's our athlete.
That's how I feel. Like, that's how I felt when I was watching the Olympics and I saw the U.S., gymnastics team totally kick ass. And these are Black women kicking ass. And I didn't look at them as Black women. I saw them as Americans.
They're our champions.
Yes, I felt proud of our American identity. And that's the thing. And I could be totally wrong about this because I was young and we tend to romanticize our childhoods and everything. But I grew up in the 90s. And I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like we weren't as obsessed with dividing ourselves into these little groups based on our skin color or our gender identity or, there was some, like a modicum of seeing everyone as Americans.
We tried to get, my generation was the love is love generation. Our whole thing was do away with the labels.
Yep.
And now, People are outraged if you get their label wrong. And you just start to think, am I a dinosaur?
Yeah, I know. I feel that all the time now, right? Like, I don't think that pursuing okay, so color blindness, I don't think is the right way of describing what color blindness was attempting to do
Agree.
because race exists, obviously, and it's very visible and it is what it is. It's not like you're erasing race. You literally can't do that. However, that whole project was about seeing the humanity in everyone before seeing anything else. And I want people to have that kind of mindset. And I think that the way that we talk about identity in this country today hyper fixates on everything that makes us different from other groups. And ironically, I think leads to more bubbles and more segregation in some ways.
Completely.
Right? And I think that the whole notion of microaggressions makes it difficult to have conversations with people, right? Because it's like, oh, I mean,
That's just a very manipulative way of shutting down any dialogue, in my opinion.
Yeah, because you're afraid that you're going to make a microaggression. I mean, it's so small that you don't even realize you're doing it, right?
I can't. When I was a kid, my mom used to teach me, obviously, you see color, you see if somebody's gay, and I didn't know I was gay as a kid, but I knew we had a designer, or this guy Scott who was gay, whatever. And my mom would teach me to seek out the differences, but then appreciate what was special about it. So she would say, you know, if there are couples that are gay, they might be adopting babies that need good homes. And we weren't a religious household, but my mom would say, like, maybe that's why nature has more gay people. Because as a child, I was like, ooh, that's weird. Or if a person was Black, she's like, I want you to think of humanity as one big team of superheroes with special powers. Then Black people can better tolerate the sun. And people who live in the Andes, you know, they can exist with less oxygen. Like, she would teach me all these cool things about superfoods from different cultures and all these things that our bodies had adapted to do differently in different parts of the world. And I always saw it as, like, that's so cool. Our differences.
Hell yeah.
And together, we make a whole. And so it wasn't about, like, I'm gay or I'm this or I'm that. I saw the differences, but the label did exactly what you're talking about. It felt divisive, always.
I mean, it depends on how you react or how you treat that label, right? If that is front-loaded into every conversation and that's what you are kind of like forced to hyperfixate on when you're having a conversation with someone or a group of people, well, then you're just hyper-focused on how different you are from each other rather than all of these things that we have in common with one another. I just think growing up in a diverse place like Los Angeles was freaking awesome. Like, I would have hated growing up in a place that was, you know, more homogenous, all white, whatever. Like, I just,
even the food, the fashion,
the culture, the experiences. Yeah.
Yes.
I think one of the best things about LA is how diverse it is, right? I would never want to change that. But when you start implementing this mindset of, well, this group has been historically bad, and even though the people in this group weren't even around when all the bad things were happening, it's okay.
Even though their
like,
ancestors were in another country at the time.
Exactly. We should demonize all of them because they're all the same, and they all, like, the whole Karen thing. Like, I remember doing those Karen segments on TYT, and as we were doing them, it just felt gross, but I wasn't quite understanding why I felt what I was feeling. I wasn't confident enough in speaking out and saying, like, these are like private citizens. And yeah, there's video of them behaving poorly, but they're still private citizens. And I don't know, like, what we're accomplishing by ruining their lives, right?
Yeah.
But we were doing those segments, and finally I just kind of talked to my, you know, the founder of TYT, my co-host Cenk Uygur, and I was just like, I don't like these segments. I think it's wrong to, like, target regular people. People make mistakes, and we don't even have the full context of these stories. We don't know what happened before the video started rolling. We don't know a lot, and we're just, like, demonizing these people. So we stopped covering those stories, and then finally I felt comfortable enough to, like, do this lengthy segment about the whole Karen thing. And I used a news story to kind of open up that discussion. And the news story had to do with the DEI trainer at Uber. Did you see this story?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. It's
Oh my
such
God,
an
tell me
amazing story.
everything.
So Uber had a DEI trainer. She was Asian, but she sounded pretty awesome because she realized like everyone in the workplace should feel comfortable and welcome and all that. And so there were white employees who felt like they were being demonized. They were being called Karens, you know, by other employees. And so they went to the DEI trainer, and DEI trainer is like, you know what? Let's have a conversation. Like, let's have a meeting, and we're going to talk about how, you know, the white female employees are feeling. And it led to an insane backlash. She ends up getting fired for even daring to want to have a conversation about how the white employees are feeling. And the other employees who had a problem with the white employees feeling uncomfortable said that they want to feel free to use phrases like Karen or whatever. And it's like, we're supposed to try to have a comfortable working environment for everybody. You guys want to create a hostile work environment. Like calling your colleagues Karens is not conducive to a productive work environment. Let's just put it that way. So like that story really like made me feel confident in finally coming out and talking about how I felt. And that's not to say that like racism doesn't exist. Of course it exists. Of course there are white women who do terrible racist things. But there was this, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Yeah. And it was just like perpetuating this narrative to make it seem like all white women are like this. And it's just not the case. And if we're not okay with making generalizations about any group, any marginalized group, maybe we shouldn't make generalizations about white people as well, you know? Because look, even if you see white people as the ones with all the power, right? They're not the oppressed, okay? They're the oppressors. That's the kind of rhetoric you'll hear.
Do not feel that way.
Right.
And they really don't appreciate it.
Right.
That's the part where they're like, what power? I'm in debt up to my eyeballs.
Right.
I'm working 24/7.
Yeah. And so my point is, by engaging in that behavior, all it does is it continues to rip the country apart. It gets us further from having a shared identity as Americans. And I'm just sick of it. And I don't indulge in any of that at all. Like, I push back against it. I got in trouble recently with some of our audience members because, you know, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, she's a Republican, and she mispronounced Kamala Harris's name on a CNN panel.
I do that all the time, though, because once you start saying it one way.
Yeah. I mean, I've always said Kamala, so I didn't have that learning curve. But a lot of people said Kamala for many years.
I did.
Including a lot of Democrats.
But like early California years.
Yes.
That's why when you didn't really know her. So once you started, you know, when you voted for her for AG and the Senate, which I did.
Mm-hmm. She wasn't bad back then.
I didn't know that much about her, to be dead honest with you. But you know, at that time, I wasn't thinking. I was like, blue, blue, blue.
That's how a lot of people vote, yeah.
I didn't think.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know even like governor. It was Brown, and he raised my taxes 3% retroactively. I was pissed. And then it was Arnold, and I knew him because I knew Maria. And so that was cool, and I didn't care. And then Newsom, and I didn't care until I cared.
Right.
Until everything went to hell in a handbasket, and now you pull your head out of the sand and you're wondering how it happened. So I've made that mistake. I still make that mistake with her name.
Yeah, and it doesn't automatically mean that you're racist. And the thing is, so in that panel discussion, so she starts off by saying Kamala, and then she thinks she's correcting herself and says Kamala, because she forgot which one was the right one. Because she's actually trying to say the right one. But then as she says Kamala, thinking that she's correcting herself, everyone on the panel jumps on her. And then when people jump on you, what do? You get defensive. So she's like, I'll call her whatever I want.
No.
She shouldn't have said that.
Oh, God.
She should not have said that.
That was a mistake, yeah.
Okay, but like, we are talking about a powerful woman who very likely could be the next president of the United States. Kamala Harris is not oppressed. You're not racist if you say Kamala accidentally instead of Kamala. This is the type of debate that affluent people have because they're comfortable. They're not worried about their health care. They're not worried about finding affordable housing for themselves and their family members. They have the luxury of debating the proper pronunciation of a powerful woman's name. And I'm sick of it. I am so sick of it.
You're spot on. I often reference, I'll say, these people don't have real problems. So I'll hear stories about people who flip out about nothing, and it could be my dermatologist or whatever. Okay, well, who cares? But I'm like, well, this is an individual that doesn't have real problems. And I think as a human being, we're so used to having these survival threats that if you don't have a real problem to focus on, you've got to make a problem that is something.
Yes, that is the human mind. It's so true. It's so true.
And it turns into that shit. And like we have a contractor who's great. And I called him Flavius. And his name's Flavius.
I can't believe you did that. Wow.
To this mom, it still happens. I'm like, hey, Flav, hi, Flav. He's like, it's okay, Jill. I'm like, it's not okay. I'm so sorry. He's whiter than white. I mean, what if I called you Anna?
Oh, that happens all the time.
Jillian.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, it's just, and you can call it inconsiderate, but it isn't racist.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, my God.
I just think we have way bigger fish to fry.
Right.
And by going after Nancy Mace, by the way, Nancy Mace is a politician who has all sorts of views that I disagree with. Like, I'm not defending her because she's the homie and we agree on everything. No. It was a microcosm of a broader issue I see in the country where affluent people get to decide what the real debate is, when in reality, ordinary Americans of all shapes, colors, creeds, they're struggling out there. Okay, and the very people who have raised their hands to be public servants or journalists are doing the opposite. They're engaging in nonsense debates, stroking their own egos and ignoring the real problems that persist in this country. And they persist because of the tribal politics. If you're gonna be pressured into supporting Democrats because Republicans are scary and Donald Trump is a unique threat to the country, well, then you're going to be forgiving about the failures of the Democratic Party. And that's been going on for a long time now. The Democrats have consistently campaigned on, you must vote for us because the other side is bad and scary.
Yeah, the never Trumpers. It's
right.
Like when I ask friends who are just dedicated to Kamala, I'm like, I've not seen it. I don't love what's happened up till now. What do you love? And I'm asking honestly. I'm like, tell me something that will inspire me about her. Not that she can read really well off of a prompter, which, by the way, is somewhat encouraging because at least we can pull it together when we need to. But I'm like, what do we love? And I either get, I'm a never Trumper, or I really care about abortion, which I understand.
Yes.
But, on the same side, I find that the people on the right who are voting for Trump, it's because there's something equally as concerning to them. And I could draw parallels. So you're worried about your body, your abortion. Well, a person who didn't want the vaccine, I got the vaccine. I've had zero issues physically. However, a person that didn't want the vaccine, if you still caught it and you weren't preventing someone else from getting it, then what the fuck do we care what you do with your body?
Well, I mean, I actually agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I didn't in the beginning because we were lied to, right? Like we were told that the vaccine will stop the spread.
I agree, and I got it blindly.
Yeah, I got it. I also had no problems with the vaccine. I'm happy I got the vaccine. But the conflict among Americans stemmed from the idea that those who weren't getting it
would give it to someone else.
Yeah, we're continuing, basically prolonging this pandemic that could just end if these difficult people did the right thing and got the vaccine. That was the mindset. But then it turns out, no, that's not how it works. And it turns out you can still spread it, but the vaccine prevents you from getting ill, like so ill that you need to be hospitalized. And so, yeah, at the end, I mean, once you have a better understanding of how the vaccine works, I think people should be able to decide what to do. The only other issue was, whenever there would be a surge in COVID cases, those who weren't vaccinated would tend to get hospitalized in a lot of cases. And the hospitals were like just overwhelmed.
I didn't ever think about that part of it.
And so other patients who might
thought about that.
who might need things like cancer treatments or stuff. Like my mom is, she's got some illnesses and stuff. So it was a tough time because she wasn't able to get the treatment she needed on time when the hospitals were overwhelmed with COVID patients who
See, that's why you always bring me back to, because for me at the time, like I said, I got it. I didn't think twice about it. I was like, whatever, I gotta travel. I need to go to dinner. Just give me the shot. Let's get rolling. But when they were going after the people that didn't want it, it didn't make sense to me because I thought, like, I get your whole herd immunity thing. However, if I got it and it works, what do I care if Anna doesn't get it because I can't get it because I got it.
Right.
So that part already started to not make sense to me. Plus, I felt like, okay, hold on. For the majority of the population, this isn't that bad. If you're morbidly obese, maybe we should recommend it. If you're elderly, maybe we should recommend it. So I just was confused about why we were demonizing it, but I never thought about that point that you just made.
And, there's this, some people who don't really watch my content at all think that I was like part of the group who advocated for firing people who refused to get vaccinated or advocated for hospitals to reject COVID patients who didn't get vaccinated. I would never subscribe to that. But there were people on the left saying things like that. And I think it's unhinged. Like, it's, again, another example of dehumanizing people who you disagree with. And I get it. You might be frustrated with them. You might think they're doing the wrong thing. But maybe sit down and before you start doing the accusations and before you start getting combative, like, try to understand where they're coming from, right?
That's why I try to bring it back to something they really care about, like abortion. You're like, my body, my body, my body. They feel the same.
Yeah.
My body, my body, my body. I don't trust it. It's preliminary. It's a new technology. It's been around for 30 years, but new in this vaccine. There's some genuine cause for concern there. I've heard some horror stories. Don't know. Haven't dove in on it. Try to stand somewhere in the middle because I literally know nothing. I believe the people who tell me their horror stories. And I think everything on the medical side is always a cost-benefit analysis. But just, my God, it was absolutely, you're right, this crazy demonization and tearing apart of everybody. I wanted also to get to, in particular, journalism. That's where I was going with this. Okay, so you were talking about journalists that covered certain things a certain way. Health. Okay. This is where, because people are often like, what are you doing talking about this? I'm like, I don't know. Take me back to lunges and like six-pack abs. I have no idea how I've ended up here. Okay. So it starts out, I told you my little story of I don't celebrate obesity. And, we were healthy at any size, and that was a very liberal position, which made no sense to me because you're not. It's not the truth. So that automatically kicks me out of the left. But then, as I began to try to speak about health and wellness, nobody would feature it in left-leaning or even center-left news outlets.
Oh, that's interesting. So you got canceled.
I got canceled, but then when they would talk about it, I was always anti-science or I was a fat shamer. And I'll never forget, there was this conversation with CNN about Ozempic. And I was saying, like, disease does not exist in a silo. This is not just about obesity. Do you understand this is related to skyrocketing rates of autism and infertility and cancer? This is like, you're not solving any problems here. It's expensive, you plateau, there's side effects, blah, blah, blah. We need to look at the bigger picture. And the woman, the anchor, was like, well, you have blood pressure medication and statins and this and that. And I said, well, first of all, I would argue that those are also lifestyle medications, which can largely be avoided if we change X, Y, and Z. I'm not saying that's easy. And she like, well, that's why we have science.
I mean, so look, I do hate that kind of thinking. Like,
what?
High blood pressure is hereditary, so is high cholesterol.
But you can impact those things. And if you can't, then yes, get on the medication.
100%. I mean, both my parents have high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I remember the first time I got a high cholesterol result back after doing, my lab work or whatever.
But did you have a calcium score?
I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Did they put you on statins?
No. They
Okay.
Yeah. I was in college.
Because I'd say before you do that, get a calcium score.
Yeah, no. This happened in college, and at that time, I just wasn't. I was eating healthy, but I didn't take into account that both my parents have cholesterol and it's hereditary, so I should be a little bit careful with some of the foods I'm eating, like eggs, for instance. I loved eggs.
So nuanced, though.
It is.
It is so nuanced, and you can forget it. I'm not going to interrupt you. We'll have a separate conversation about that.
Yeah.
But it's actually a very small percentage of the population, and yes, it is genetic, that can absorb cholesterol from their food. It does happen, contrary to popular belief, and I have a great episode with Dr. Arthur Agatston, who created the calcium score, that I will send you.
Okay.
Please go on. Go on.
But, you know, I don't want to take drugs for cholesterol or high blood pressure. And by the way, like I had 2 or 3 years ago, 2 high blood pressure readings in a row. And the doctor told me, if you have a third one in a row, we're going to have to put you on something, because my mom had high blood pressure but didn't get the right treatment for it. So it messed up her kidneys.
Yeah.
And so I did not want that to happen, but I started really looking into, okay, well, what can I do to keep my blood pressure lower without having to take medication? And I just started exercising more. I've always been into exercise, but I exercised more. A little more careful with like the foods I eat, the sodium intake, all of that. I'm great. I mean, I haven't had a high blood pressure reading in like 2 or 3 years now. So
it's a continuum.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, can we deal with it from a lifestyle perspective? And if not, then okay, of course.
Right.
But my point is simply not even to debate like blood pressure and heart disease and cholesterol. It's the fact that the narrative became paint everybody on this side with a crazy brush. And now we've gone so far to say it's MAGA and alt-right, and I'm not exaggerating.
To be
healthy.
Really? Who says that?
Oh my God, where do you want to begin?
Really?
Let me give you 2 examples.
That's insane.
This one, I'm telling you, everybody's gone. This is what I'm trying to say. Like, okay.
So Lizzo is MAGA now?
I guess so. I guess she's about to be MAGA.
That's hilarious.
2 examples for you. And there are numerous examples. So first of all, they won't feature it. If they do feature it, you're like crazy anti-science loon. MSNBC just came out with an article saying that fitness, I have to laugh, is linked to the Nazis. I will send it to you. I swear to God, I actually retweeted it because I was like, what if you're Jewish, but you like to work out? Where do you fall? But here's a perfect example. So again, we were at the Capitol Nessie week, because I was with a group of MDs from Harvard, Stanford, and Johns Hopkins, PhDs, health advocates, giving a Senate hearing, testimony to the Senate. Long story short, nobody picks it up, but the Daily Mail, page 6, Fox, all of Fox, Fox and Friends, Jesse Waters, Gutfeld, Megyn Kelly, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson. I'm like, I gotta call Bill. I need Bill to talk about this. Nobody else except The Atlantic, who then came out and said, MAGA meets woo-woo. It was totally nonpartisan. It had no other intention except to try and root out some of the corruption between big food, big farming, big pharma, big insurance, the fact that we have 10,000 chemicals in our food and 400 in Europe. How do you call that MAGA? What am I missing? Why are they doing this?
It's this, like, honestly, it's this brain rot of thinking that if you want to improve people's lives, right? Like, in this case, if you want people to get healthier, well, that by default means you are judgmental and hateful toward people who are either overweight or unhealthy, which is just not true. That's not, like, that leap for some reason exists. I think that exists.
It was corporate advertising. I'm like, this has to be. Like,
It's
where
nuts.
is this coming from? And the part that I think, again, another big mistake is that moms care what's in their kids' food.
Of course. Yeah.
And if you tell them that caring about the fact that there's 10,000 different carcinogens in their child's breakfast cereal is MAGA, you might just be signing them up.
I know. I feel like that's been happening. Why do you think someone like Trump has managed to increase his support among Black male voters and by Latino voters?
I don't know. Why?
Because the Democratic Party does not speak to them or their issues. Like,
What happened to if you ain't black, you're not voting for me, you're not black?
And by the way, Trump does the same thing with Jewish people. He's like, you're not a good Jew if you don't vote for me because I did all these things in Israel. And it's like,
God,
not
you're
every
right.
Jewish American cares about Israel before they care about their lives here in America. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, good
You know?
point, good
Yeah.
point. Touche, my friend.
But it's like, yeah, I just think the Democratic Party for a very long time has taken, you know, the black vote for granted, the Latino vote for granted. You know, there was this mind virus about how all Latino voters care deeply about the border in terms of like not doing what Trump is doing. And it's like, no, just because you're Latino doesn't mean you're in favor of illegal immigration. Like, I don't know. I think that the Democratic Party has not really been a party of bringing people in. It's been a party of like purging people who aren't 100% in line.
Yes.
And I think that various groups of people who traditionally would vote for Democrats are looking to be inspired and are looking for progress. They want to move forward. A lot of the conversation right now on the left is about judging people, blaming people, going backwards and looking at what we've done wrong in the past and hyper fixating on it and blaming people today for what's happened in the past. You know, I feel kind of funny bringing her up now because she was involved in this big scandal, but there's a journalist named Olivia Nuzzi. I don't know
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I haven't given it a ton of credit because it's like, I'm like, did they sleep together? No. Okay.
I know.
Moving on. Did you compromise the integrity of your work? No. Okay. Next.
Yeah.
Okay. But is there something there?
I mean, I'm actually like the most offensive thing about all of it is how beautiful she is and how she like what are you doing, girl? Like, I mean, come on. But I bring her up because she was viciously attacked because she wrote a piece about Biden's mental decline, which was obvious. It was like an open secret. And she honestly reported on that. And I was happy she did so. But like, she was viciously attacked by Democratic voters on social media. This mob went after her employers at Bloomberg. She's coming out with like some sort of series, and they were going to have this big PR campaign around it, but they scrapped it after these like hardcore Biden loyalists were furious that she would dare tell the truth about his mental decline, which, by the way, turns out it was true, right?
Girl, do you know how many doctors I work with? They all said he's got Parkinson's for years. Go back and watch my interview with Bill on his podcast in January of 24. And I said, Bill, no, he's gone. He's like, it's ridiculous. I was like, Bill,
I know.
He's gone.
We were concerned.
He's demented.
We were concerned all the way back in 2020.
Yes.
And I remember getting like totally shut down. I mean, how dare you? This is ageism. And so we backed off because we thought maybe we're the crazy ones. Okay, fine, we'll back off. And then you just see the decline accelerate. And when he said he was going to run in 24 or 424, I'm like, no, this is nuts. Like, this is crazy. And we would never see him out and about. He doesn't give, as many speeches as former presidents, doesn't do media appearances. They were obviously trying to hide him from the public. But you can't hide him from the public when he's doing a debate.
By the way, who's running our country?
Yeah, I know.
Can I ask you, do you know?
Foreign policy is being run by Blinken.
Okay.
Secretary of State. Blinken.
Okay, good. Tell me who's running things. I actually have no idea. I feel like an idiot because everyone asks it, but who is? Someone's got to be doing it.
I mean, it also kind of speaks to how populated that bureaucracy is.
Doesn't it, though?
Yeah, but it kind of gives me a little bit of peace knowing that. I mean,
but it's a think tank?
It's both bad and good because a bunch of unelected people are making decisions that we didn't ask for and we didn't vote for, so that's a problem. But it's also good in that people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but I genuinely believe it doesn't matter who gets elected.
Right.
It really doesn't matter.
I said the same thing, but I think the reason I say the same thing is not from any sort of probably angle you're coming from of like there's all these people behind the scenes in those positions.
Yeah.
To me, it's like you're voting for a billionaire. I mean, come on, there's Tim Walz standing next to Alex Soros. Elon Musk is giving Trump $45 million a month. And these guys are bought and paid for.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
You're voting for billionaires and whatever they want.
If you want to get a preview of how a president plans to lead, just look at who their donors are. And so I have no doubt that if Kamala Harris gets elected, she'll probably get rid of Lena Khan, who's the head of the Federal Trade Commission. Billionaires hate Lena Khan because she is breaking up monopolies, which, by the way, is excellent. We desperately need that. Consumers need more options, and we increasingly have less and less options because these big corporations are eating up all the smaller companies. I mean, take a look at how internet service providers work. Do you want to know how many options I have for internet service providers? One, Spectrum. That's it. That's a monopoly in our neighborhood. It's crazy. So they can do whatever they want. They increase how much I have to pay for internet every year. $10, $15, doesn't matter. I have no choice. Yeah.
Right.
So we need someone who has the agenda of wanting to break up monopolies or prevent monopolies from forming, but billionaires don't like that. So Reid Hoffman, he gave the whole game away during an interview where he's like, yes, I'm a big donor to Kamala Harris and I want her to get rid of Lena Khan. And so I have no doubt she will get rid of Lena Khan. She was paid to do it.
But see, then when you talk to my mom, who is a lefty, I mean, through and through, to the bone, I was raised by, but I'm like, Mom, what do you love? And she hates Trump so much. She thinks that he is Hitlerian. I'm like, but there's no evidence, Mom. We did 4 years. He's not Hitler. That's it. And she doesn't know what you're talking about getting rid of, the person who's breaking up monopolies. Nope. And she watches MSNBC and CNN. Actually, MSNBC went so far left, my mom actually gave up on it.
Oh, wow.
She was worried about illegal immigration, and they called her a white nationalist.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And my mom
That's
was
crazy.
like, I am not a white nationalist.
What about the Black community in Chicago that's been furious about the influx of migrants because they need resources, but all the resources are going to the, influx of migrants who showed up.
Right.
And so they're like, wait a minute, we need housing, we need homeless shelters. Like, what's going on? Are they white nationalists for saying these things? No, they're not white nationalists. It is a genuine concern, and we should find solutions for it, right? Like, that doesn't make you a bad person. I believe in immigration.
Me too.
Okay, I think that, again, just going back to what I was saying about LA, LA is great because of its diversity.
But not illegal immigration.
Right.
Like,
you have to have control of the border. If you don't have control of the border, you don't have a country, right? Like, that's just, and by the way, you want to know who said that? In an interview with Vox in 2015, Bernie Sanders. Senator Bernie Sanders said that. He's like, I don't support open borders. You want to know who supports open borders? The Koch brothers, okay? The corporations that want cheap labor.
Wow.
And I don't know if he would say that same thing today, because when Bernie Sanders came onto the national scene as a presidential candidate, he has a very narrow focus, and that narrow focus is to improve the economic lives of Americans. And he just didn't want to get sucked into or distracted by some of the toxic, divisive culture war stuff. And at that time, BLM was coming up and all of that. And they basically eventually beat him to submission. And his 2020 presidential campaign was different. It was more focused on the culture war stuff. And he's always been principled. He's always had the same policy agenda when it comes to economic stuff. But I realize that you end up disenfranchising or turning a lot of people off when you start treating Americans as groups as opposed to pursuing universal policies that make everyone's lives better. You get what I'm saying?
I absolutely do.
Yeah.
You know who spoke to me on this? For whatever it's worth, was Chris Christie. Instead of like, I'm building a wall, like Trump speaks in such a way that this never would have happened under me. Well, okay, but explain to me why.
Right,
and what you're going to do about it.
He's so bad. But can I just say, not to interrupt you?
No,
Trump is like, he is his own worst enemy.
Completely, I know.
Okay, he gets himself into trouble with the way he talks.
I agree.
He says pretty disgusting things.
It's very challenging.
I'm sorry. And,
I know.
What it does
it's
is
cringy.
It is
it's
a
awful.
disservice. It is a disservice to himself, because no one's talking about the policies he implemented that were actually good, right? And so, for instance, the whole Remain in Mexico policy, which basically ensured that asylum seekers seek asylum in the first country they arrive to. Okay, in some cases it's Mexico. And so Mexico would have to decide whether or not some of these asylum seekers are actually covered by asylum, can stay in the country.
Right.
Or there was another component of that policy where asylum seekers to America would
Stayed in
remain in
Mexico.
Mexico until their asylum case is adjudicated by a judge. And Biden came in and repealed that policy.
Right.
And first of all, the media didn't report on that clearly. So, like, you'd have to do a lot of digging, as I did, to figure out what Biden did differently from Trump. Because if the media, which I do think has a more liberal bent, were honest about what Biden did, that would mean you'd have to acknowledge that Trump did something that was actually kind of successful, right?
You are honest, but most sort
People
of
are
aren't.
not. They're
And
politically motivated.
it's tough, yeah.
And they will, I think, either lie to themselves or
both sides do it, though.
Yeah,
That's why the
definitely.
independent stuff is so important. That's why Young Turks is so important. That's why Rogan's so important. That's why Megan's. That's why all these different outlets with differing perspectives, they're not captured.
Right.
They do the work.
Yeah.
That's why I don't watch I don't watch TV.
Yeah.
I watch YouTube. I watch you. I watch Joe. I watch a handful of different journalists that I know I can trust.
Yep.
Wait till I get into the misinformation. I don't even open my mouth until I listen to you talk about it anymore because I find out I'm wrong half the time, which is a separate conversation. But agreed. And Chris Christie had he explained it so well. He's like, we're founded on, migrants and different cultures and work ethic, but if we do this in such a way where we take in the best and the brightest and we vet people heavily and we allow them to pay into the system by allowing them to work and we control the influx. So now they're boosting our infrastructure instead of draining upon it.
Yep.
And I was like, well, why is this so hard? And it seems like it's become a political football.
It is. Like, it goes back to what we were saying when it comes to, gender affirming medicine for minors. It becomes a problem when that issue becomes hyper politicized. And you have, if the Republicans declare one thing, well, then Democrats, by definition, must declare the opposite. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think that's the right way to look at any issue.
I got it.
Right? But sometimes conservatives make good points. Sometimes they're right about issues, and that's okay. That doesn't mean
sometimes Democrats and conservatives are right.
Yes,
it happens.
It doesn't mean you subscribe to everything they believe and say. It just means that, hey, I think we can come up with the best solutions if we're just open to different, varying perspectives, find areas of compromise. I mean, that's really the only way to pass legislation that benefits people, right? Where you're willing to actually compromise. I used to be super hard-headed about it. I used to think, no, if it's not a perfect bill that gives us everything we want, we shouldn't subscribe to it.
Right.
And I just think a little more pragmatically.
Life. Yep.
And I also know that no side has a monopoly on the truth. No side has a monopoly on what's right. I think both sides have some really great points. Both sides have some serious flaws that they refuse to work on because they won't even acknowledge those flaws. And so we keep finding ourselves in this like weird purgatory. That's what it feels like. We're not moving forward at all. And it's because of the way we talk to each other. And I'm just trying really hard, despite all the backlash and hate I'm getting from some people, to just try to find common ground and try to find solutions. And more importantly, try to see each other as fellow Americans before anything else.
The reason you're getting the hate is because you're so successful. Excuse me. And I say that simply because, like, this show is new to video. It's been a health show on audio for a decade, did great there. And Bill said, like, I want to give you a bigger audience, and why is no one talking about this? And it comes down to like medical McCarthyism and some of the stuff we tapped on earlier, but nevertheless, having conversations that are with the Matt Walshes or with the other side, people are loving it. You know why? Because no one's really caught on to it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do, they'll go after me the way they went after Lex, the way they go after you.
I love Lex.
Me too.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, because he tries to really be.
I'm a big fan of his show. And it's because I don't even know what his political views are, to be honest with you. And I just really appreciate the fact that he is willing to invite people from across the political spectrum and let them talk. Just let them, in a long form, show, express like what their views are, how they came to those conclusions, because it's given me a better understanding of the world around me, the people around me, others who are in a different political group, whatever it is. And I just really, really appreciate that. And since he's not combative, people are willing to go on his show from all walks of life.
Get roasted though. They go after him constantly. They constantly, and he'll go on X and he's like, this is very challenging because everyone's yelling at me and he's like, I'm just trying to, I would notice him go through that for a little while, a year and a half ago. And he'd say, I don't think the world is going to end no matter who gets in office, and everybody went, But it's because he's breaking through the noise. It's because you're breaking through the noise. Who gives a shit if they hate you? They hate Joe. He's huge. They hate Megyn. She's huge. They hate Tucker. He's massive. Like, who's they? You're hearing the people that literally get online. I don't even know if they're real. According to Kara Swisher, most of them aren't. Most of it is bots.
Lots of bots. That's true.
And she would know. So I don't even think that's real. And I can tell you that the masses respond. And you see it with Bill.
Yeah.
There's a reason Bill is Bill. I mean, I think HBO's paying him like $30 million for a reason.
Wow.
Bill, if you're mad, you can cut that out. Anyway, like there's a reason he's the $30 million man.
Well, I respect him in that he is unafraid to say what he actually thinks, and he does it all the time. Yeah. Sometimes he says things that, offend my sensibilities.
Same.
But whatever. I mean, he's his own person, and obviously he's doing something right. He was also one of the first, maybe he's like the only other person on the left or in the Democratic Party that was willing to like very vocally call out.
Show the warts.
Yeah, and I really respect that.
And they haven't called him MAGA yet. I think the reason is because he hates Trump so much you couldn't possibly.
He definitely hates Trump.
Like doesn't take a beat on it ever.
That shines through for sure. Yeah,
much so. So it's like, but the right is willing. They'll go back at him, but they're willing. He's on Gutfeld.
Mm-hmm.
He's on this. He's on that. You could get Matt Walsh to sit down. It's very difficult to get people from the left to sit down. It really is. They're less willing to engage. God damn.
Why do you think that is? Yeah, like, have you had a hard
Impossible.
time?
Did you see Jon Stewart come out and say that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, Anna.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Jon Stewart's having a hard time getting people on the left?
Where's my phone?
I'll go on his
please
show.
Google this.
I will.
John?
I'll go on your show,
I got
John.
one for you. He came out and it was everywhere, and he was incapable of bringing left journalists onto his show. They wouldn't even return the calls. Hang on, where is my phone?
I'm dying to know about this.
Okay, Jon Stewart calls out NBC and CNN for not allowing reporters on his podcast.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so
there's more to this that I don't know?
I mean, I don't know too much about that story, so I got to read the details, but there's this.
I don't think it's just them though. It's also like the MSNBC. So it's CNN, MSNBC, NBC.
They have these exclusivity clauses in their contracts that prevents them from being able to appear on other shows. It's kind of like the non-compete clauses that other employees have in other fields of work.
He ain't saying that's it. He's saying they're not even returning calls.
Interesting. But why?
Because he's making fun of the DNC and the Republicans at the same time.
Yeah, he does do that, and I love that about him.
So does Bill, and somehow Bill manages to pull it off. But he's saying that the minute he'll point out something about the DNC that's hypocritical, he even says while he's doing it, he's like, well, there goes that booking. Like,
Great. I mean, great. The way I see it is, if you are lying to your audience in order to maintain access to certain people, then you're putting together a pretty crappy show.
Right.
You know, I mean, he would have to muzzle himself in order to appeal to people who would be boring as hell on his show anyway. Who wants to hear from ideologues? Ideologues are boring. They're like the most boring, predictable people on the planet. Yet they are like, our media's littered with them. Like, let's it's about time we purge some of the ideologues and bring some, you know, actual nuanced thinkers, critical thinkers on.
Well, that's why shows like yours have millions of subscribers, though. I was just talking to Chris, my executive producer, and we have this idea that a documentary that I wanted to take out, and he was like, I'm telling you, it doesn't even matter. TV's dead. Everything's here. This is all that matters. And he started telling me just they're running out of money. There's no funding. There's no eyeballs.
No one's watching TV anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Especially not the news. It's dying off because no one trusts it. Speaking of fake news, okay, so, God, this is tough. And I say it's tough because I've actually fallen for it, and I'll give you a few examples. Knowing what's true, knowing what's real. I had really liked Pete Buttigieg for a long time. I was like, the guy's a Marine. He's a Rhodes Scholar. He speaks a million different languages. He's unbelievably eloquent and competent and capable. I guess there was some issue that he had, and I don't know what, but in general, I like him. And there was a picture of him online in this contraption that were like fake.
I saw that.
It's fake.
It is fake, yeah. I know. There's a lot of fake stuff out there. And
it was creepy as hell to me because I thought, get a bottle. This is weird.
Yeah.
It's not real. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
I know. Okay, so that's where...
I told my wife that morning, by the way, I fell asleep, I was listening to your show, and you guys broke it down, right? So I woke up. This is the morning of the debate. And I woke up, and my wife's a Republican. I said, honey, listen to me. I know you love to get your Twitter fingers going. This is not real.
Yeah.
Don't do it. You look like an ass. Why did nobody tell Trump?
Well, see, this is the thing. This is the thing.
They're not eating dogs and cats. There's problems.
I don't know if Trump really believes that Haitian migrants are eating dogs and cats, or if he's just doing this sick, like, I don't know. Like, a lot of people think he's doing it on purpose. Like, he knows that it's not true, and he's spreading it to spread fear. And like, I don't know.
They're killing. They are killing and raping kids and women and taking over apartment buildings. I mean, they're beating up cops. Why can't you go to the stuff that's real?
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
there's real problems with illegal immigration.
What's so frustrating about the way people like Trump talk about immigration is that when real issues arise, and you are not at all in favor of some of the things that Trump has said, it's impossible to bring up the real issues because people are now conditioned to think, oh, you're saying something negative about migrants.
Right.
So that means you're now a Trumper. That means you're against immigration. No. There is obviously a problem when any community sees a big influx of people and doesn't have the resources to withstand like a huge population increase, right?
You can't. That who's coming in, they're chanting death to America. Like, okay.
I just think,
Come on.
I just think, yeah. I mean,
how about that?
Biden,
just stay there.
Biden did not have control. Like, he didn't have control of the immigration system. He didn't. Like, there's a loophole. The human smugglers figured out what the loophole was and were able to smuggle more and more people in. I mean, in December alone, 300,000 people came into the country. That's a lot of people. And we don't have enough judges to adjudicate all of these asylum claims. It's been a disaster. And like, what irritates me about the whole situation is Biden neglected it until it became a political liability. Then he calls on Congress to pass legislation. Democrats and Republicans did come together and had a bipartisan, immigration bill. But Trump wanted to run on immigration, so he got the Republicans to squash it, even though Republicans got everything they wanted in that bill.
Did they?
They did,
okay,
yes.
Well, here's the thing. I knew he did that for sure.
Yeah.
And I would have handled it obviously different. If I was him, I would have spun it as, well, thank God they did something. Too little, too late. We still have 15 million people here. How are we going to figure out what to do?
Right.
And there's so many, we don't have to talk about dogs and cats.
He put...
you open yourself up to this.
Yeah, it's so dumb. And he put his political aspirations before what's best for the country. And so, like, you know, we've been pretty critical of the Democratic side, but the reason why I find myself politically homeless is because I look at what Trump's up to and I look at the way they talk about people, the way, you know, Trump divides people with his rhetoric and his actions.
I know.
The fact that he's so selfish that he put his political career before before the best interests of the American people with the immigration bill. All of that stuff really bothers me.
You're right. Me too. That's why I can't. It's so tough because a lot of people watching, they love him. You know,
And it's their right to.
It's their right
you know?
to. But I see all of these flaws, and I see all the flaws on the other side, and I kind of just don't understand how we're like. Why do you go dogs and cats when you've got real? You know, why do you not say yes, do it? You can still go after the fact that they let it all go. Why they let it go? Too little, too late. Still a ton of work needs to be done. Like you still have so much.
Right.
There's so much there. I feel like I can do this for you. I do lunges for a living. Like,
I know.
Why, Mama?
I kind of feel like Trump has kind of. I feel like there's an element of laziness to it. Right? It's easier to just demagogue or play dirty tricks to win rather than actually doing, like, strategizing. Because I think you can be I know this sounds laughable, but I do genuinely believe you can be an honest politician who puts the country first and still win, but you just have to take the time to strategize. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, he did lose that debate against Kamala Harris. And it's not because Kamala Harris is like some debating genius. It's because Trump didn't prepare. He underestimated her. He didn't prepare. I mean, a moment that really stood out to me, no one else cared about this moment, but I did because I know what Biden did following Trump. Kamala Harris attacked Trump's tariffs. And Trump just like looked down and looked grumpy and had no like rebuttal. And I was just like, bro, Biden took your tariffs.
He kept them, right?
He not only kept them, he expanded them.
He did?
He expanded them. So Biden doubled down on the tariffs. If Trump had done the work, if he had prepared for the debate, and if he hadn't underestimated his opponent, he would have been prepared with that. And he just wasn't. And that like laziness really bothers me because it's like, you want to run the country. What do you want to run the country for? For your own benefit? Or because you actually want to work on behalf of the American people as their leader, as their public servant?
But even speaking of that debate, is the affidavit even real? Mm-hmm. Like, the guy from ABC and secretly and the thing, is that even real? You guys said no.
I haven't seen any evidence.
And then Megyn Kelly said, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But this is my point. Like, how do you guys get to the bottom? Because now I just won't even open my mouth until I go to your channel. I wait and see if you comment on it. And I know you guys will have done the work on it.
Yeah.
But how are you getting to the truth of, I mean, I have a list of stuff. Oh my God, I fell for this one. Mm-hmm. The second shooter of the Ralph guy, or the second attempted shooter.
Yes, the would-be assassin.
The would-be assassin. Okay, it went around that he was in a BlackRock commercial. And I am such an ass. I didn't vet it. There's my bias, because I just thought, well, must be true. Because I happen to think Larry Fink is the devil. So my bias shined through. Mm-hmm. And my mom, who constantly like this with me, right? And politically. And she's like, just waiting for you to find out that's not true. And I was like, God damn it.
I know.
She thinks everything that isn't CNN is misinformation. How are you getting to the bottom of this?
Well, okay, so with that affidavit
what do
story,
we do?
I think what is the original source of the information? So that ABC affidavit, like where did it come from?
Black insurrectionist or something on Twitter?
It came from some random anonymous Twitter account. Okay. And I there's no credibility there, right? Like I'm not just going to believe it. I need some more substance, right? Like I need to know who this person really is. Were they really employed at ABC? Some anonymous person on Twitter can say anything.
Yep.
And what is actually very scary is that people are just ready and willing to believe what any random Twitter account posts online.
If it suits your ideology, that's why you fall for it.
People are looking for validation and confirmation of what they already believe. They want their preconceived notions to be validated. And
yes, that's why I fell for it.
It's very human, and it's very uncomfortable to accept information contrary to what you already believe. But I think I don't know how we solve this. I don't know if we focus more on critical thinking in schools, and
it's going to get worse.
It is.
With AI and the deep fakes, it's going to get worse.
Yep.
And it does impact you. When I saw that picture of Pete Buttigieg, it felt weird. And oh my God, I'd like to think I'm smarter than that. But I thought, oh, that's so bizarre. Like, okay, that's odd. Okay.
Well, you're human, and the important thing is to learn from those mistakes. And by the way, I mean, I made so many of those mistakes during the pandemic era. I got so many stories wrong, and I felt awful about it, which is why my whole process now is so different.
Tell me about your process.
I, first of all, have really diversified like my sources and my media diet. I would only trust like legacy media and legacy media that was very obviously like left wing. And so I had shut myself off from any reporting from more conservative sources. And when you do that, what happens is there are certain elements or details to a story that you're just gonna miss, right? And so I hadn't realized that while, the Washington Post, New York Times, they're not necessarily lying in their reporting, but what I noticed was happening is they were omitting certain details to a story that gives you a full picture. And so now with a more diversified media diet, certain things that aren't being reported by the New York Times is being reported by National Review, right? So if I read both sources, I get a more holistic look at this issue or this story. And also like digging a little deeper yourself. Like I could either just accept someone else's summary of a court filing, or I can just read the court filing for myself. And read the court filing for yourself, because someone else's summary of it likely is going to leave important elements out, or maybe even be misleading in what the court filing says. I realized a lot of that was going on too. There was a guy named James Damore. He was employed by Google, and at the time, Google was trying to figure out what can we do to attract more female coders and engineers, because there's a disparity here, and we want more women working with us. And so he put out like a document that he sent to everyone in the company giving his suggestions, and he looked at some studies and saw like men and women, mentally are a little different. These studies indicate women are more neurotic, so maybe we can change this and that in the company to be more accommodating to, female workers, blah, blah, blah. When you read the whole thing, you can tell he's not coming from a misogynistic, disgusting place. He genuinely wanted to help and thought he was helping. They ended up firing him because some of the, female workers who were there thought that he was being misogynistic. The media's summary of the document he put out was totally misleading. I read the whole thing and I'm like, look, he might not be correct in analyzing some of these studies, but it's obvious to me he's not coming from an evil or misogynistic place. Like, meet people with a little bit of grace. And so that was my commentary on the show. And there were other people on the panel who hadn't read the entire document, so they just kind of went with what was being reported about it. And they had a totally different perspective, which didn't shock me. It didn't surprise me. And so to me, it's important to get to the original source, read the original source material for yourself. And more importantly, this is the most important thing, wait before you react. It's hard. It is hard because sometimes you'll come across something online that makes you angry and you want to react. But what I've learned to do is just wait, let this develop a little more, and let's see what's really going on. And whenever you do that, typically the updates to the story paint a much more complicated picture.
Cuomo just said that about Eric Adams. somebody went after him. I can't recall, but I saw it on X, and I saw Cuomo was like, just, hey, hold on a second. And I thought, this has got to have something to do with what they did to his brother, that now he's kind of pushing exactly what you're saying. Pause.
Yeah.
And let it play out. If it is what they say it is, you can have your feelings about it then, and justice will be done. And if it isn't, and that's not the case, and the guy's innocent until proven guilty, meet the story with some grace.
Right. Exactly.
You're fantastic as I have appreciated you to be on your show. Tell
Thank you.
everybody where we can find you all the time.
You can find me over at TYT, the Young Turks. That's the show that I produce and host. So that's youtube.com/the Young Turks. And you can find me on social media at Ana Kasparian.
Hope we can continue these conversations.
I would love to, yeah.
I mean, I need you to be my personal political advisor. Oh my gosh. God.
I really appreciate the conversation. I love what you're doing, and just keep going because we need more of this.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And make sure to let me know what guests you want to see on in the future.